The new LinkedIn Hiring Pro can't undo your last hire. The human postponer. They were the master of one phrase. I'll circle back on that. But 3 months later, you were the one doing all their work and wondering how big that circle is. But LinkedIn Hiring Pro can take the hiring load off your plate by automating the hiring busy work from the initial job post to scheduling interviews. Hire right the first time with LinkedIn Hiring Pro. Post a free job today at linkedin.com/quality.
This episode is brought to you by Perfect Bistro Cat Food. Hey guys, today I'm interviewing my cat about his perfect bistro food. Percy, you seem to be a big Perfect Bistro fan. Care to comment? Totally. What do you like about it? You love the high-quality ingredients? And the delicious flavors, of course. Yeah, that makes a ton of sense. Listen to Percy, guys. Visit perfectbistro.com to try it for your cat.
So we're going to kick off with our first question today, which is, would you rather know that your relationship was going to end in 5 years or not know at all? So if you started seeing someone and you knew you're going to have a great time in this relationship, it's going to last 5 years and then this person's going to leave, or would you rather just start the relationship and not knowing? And looking at both of those, I've always thought with marriage, it'd be a great idea to actually have contractual marriages that you have where the marriage lasted for 5 years. I don't think any longer than 5. And at the end of that 5 years, you both sat down and you decided whether you wanted to both renew these contracts or if one of you wanted to walk away. Now, I guess that's a little bit like a prenuptial, but I think if you knew that you had 3 to 5 years in a relationship, that you would actually try harder. Now, I know you could be thinking, well, you should try hard anyway, Elliot, shouldn't you, really? I think, yes, you definitely should, but I think we can get very complacent within relationships, especially when there's other things going on like kids, work, whatever it is, and we can get distracted by those things, which from time to time, obviously we have to be. But I think what that does sometimes is make us think, right, that person I'm with, they'll be okay. I know they're at home. We live together. I'll be seeing them. And then in your mind, just because you're in the same house and you're actually with that person, you feel like you're spending time with them, where actually you're kind of not. You're not growing together. And what we said in a previous podcast is that our body sheds and its cells and everything else in 7 years. So in every 7-year cycle, we are literally a new person. So I think if you had this 5 years of where you knew that you had 5 years with a person, that you were going to keep your game up, you were going to keep your end of the bargain. And also, on the counter side of that, it may be like you get to the end of 5 years and you both sit down and go, this has been great, but it's not for me anymore. And then you can both move on. Or if one of you doesn't want to do it, at least you know where you are 5 years. Well, yeah, but what if one of you wants to carry on and the other one doesn't? Well, then it's a conversation. But what that has done is it's actually brought that conversation to the surface, as opposed to just one person feeling unhappy, not saying it out loud, and then maybe trying to find happiness with other people without leaving. And then they're having affairs and that drags on. And eventually it comes out 15 years later. And the other person's like, well, if I'd have known this 10 years ago, we could have stopped. So I think that has a big bonus for it, a contractual marriage. And also, everything is sorted out beforehand where you both know where you are if you walk away. So you both go, right, you get 60% of that, 40% of that, or, I've bought X amount into the relationship, you've bought X amount, so you take this, I take that. And if you've got kids, you're both contractually, obviously, with the kids, you're still parents. So all that's organised. It will save a fortune on lawyers and time and courts because you know where you are. And I think also knowing where you are if it finishes, one, would help you get your head around it finishing. And two, it would all maybe make you try a bit harder if you think you're not pulling your weight. If you relate it to, say, footballers, the last year of their contract, they play the best that they've ever played throughout the whole time because they know it's coming to an end. And it's like, right, I need to pull my finger out here. If I'm going to get a new contract and I want to stay at this club or with this person, I need to start doing something that shows that I want to be with them. So I think if you could know, I do think that would be something where you would enjoy the 5 years. The difference with that question, obviously, is that you know it's going to finish in 5 years. So would it be a case of like knowing you've only got 3 years to live? You'll pack as much in as you possibly can in that 3 years, but you'd always have a bit of a sad feeling the whole time thinking, I'm leaving all this soon and I don't want it to end. So I think for me, in terms of would I want to know the relationship was going to end in 5 years? Probably not, because I don't think I would enjoy it in those moments. I think I would just be slightly sad. However, what if we said you could date your dream person? So say it was, I don't know, Matthew McConaughey, let's say, and someone said to you, right, you could have a 3-year relationship with him, but it's going to end in 3 years. Would you take it? Would that make any difference? Because are you looking at the person as a, yeah, but I get to spend 3 years with Matthew McConaughey, think how great that would be? Or would you thinking, he's just going to be another guy at the end of the day? Besides what he does and everything else, I'm still going to have to get to know him and I'm still going to know it's going to end. And what if I don't want it to end? Does that change the question for you? So if it could just be a person that's in your life that you're having a relationship with and you love them, but someone said, right, this is going to end in 5 years. Would you still have it or would you rather not know? I think for me, like I said, I'd rather not know because I don't think I would actually enjoy it. It would become as a shock in the end, as it always does. Listen, when you break up with people and you're not expecting it, it can be a shock because that's been going on in the other person's head a long time. Whereas to you, it's fresh information. So you're completely at different points. They've already finished their race and you feel like you're halfway around yours and you thought you had loads left to go and they'd finished long ago. So I think in terms of that question, would you rather know your relationship was going to finish in X amount of years or not know at all? Is very different to the marriage contract proposal, which personally I think is a great idea. But, imagine that you started that with a person and you started dating and you said, listen, I'll tell you what, let's both say we're going to give this a year and then we'll have a chat in a year. And then you got to the end of that year and you had a chat and you both decided that you wanted to go on and you did it again. Or one of you went, I've had a great year, but I'm done. If that person's done, they were going to be done anyway. But at least there is always almost an appointment to talk. And maybe you could say, yeah, but you should have those anyway. That should be a constant check-in. But do we? If you're going to do stuff like that, you'll end up having sex on the calendar, which I've never got my head around. But it's finding time. I guess it's a bit like date night. I never was sure about date nights. There doesn't seem to be spontaneity there, but at the same time, as I completely understand, unless you make time for each other and both commit to a time and a window, sometimes it doesn't happen, especially when you've got other commitments, work, kids, family. So I do understand those a lot more now than I did. But very interesting question. Let me know what you think. Would you rather know or not know? And what do you think about the contractual idea? I wonder how that would go. And next question. If you could look through your partner's phone without them knowing, would you?
The new LinkedIn Hiring Pro can't undo your last hire. The human postponer. They were the master of one phrase. I'll circle back on that. But 3 months later, you were the one doing all their work and wondering how big that circle is. But LinkedIn Hiring Pro can take the hiring load off your plate by automating the hiring busy work from the initial job post to scheduling interviews. Hire right the first time with LinkedIn Hiring Pro. Post a free job today at linkedin.com/quality.
This episode is brought to you by Perfect Bistro Cat Food. Hey guys, today I'm interviewing my cat about his perfect bistro food. Percy, you seem to be a big Perfect Bistro fan. Care to comment? Totally. What do you like about it? You love the high quality ingredients? And the delicious flavors, of course. Yeah, that makes a ton of sense. Listen to Percy, guys. Visit perfectbistro.com to try it for your cat.
It's always very difficult, that, isn't it? Have I ever looked through my partner's phone? Yes, I have. There was once I did. I was dating a girl and I trusted her about as far as I could throw her. And when you've got that feeling in your stomach, quite often it's not wrong. But she was always say that. And in fairness, to add context to the situation, we were dating. You know, I thought it was more serious dating, obviously, than she actually did. And I kind of thought we were just seeing each other. My fault. Shouldn't have never have assumed that. And I knew that she'd sort of text him. I was aware that she'd probably texted other guys, which I didn't really have a problem with because I thought if people are going to leave, they're going to leave. But there was just something about it that I just wasn't sure about. And she'd got out of the garage to go and pay for some petrol, and she left her phone there. And I just wanted to know, you know, that feeling where you just think, I just need to know because I feel like I'm being played for an idiot here and I just need to know. And I ended up looking and yeah, I was being played for a complete idiot because she'd been sending videos and all sorts of this guy. So the joke was on me a little bit, but at least I found out. And obviously that didn't go on a lot longer and it was a very awkward car journey home because we was up north at the time. I don't think I would have ever got those answers. So I have done it, so I know reasons why people do it. But once you get that feeling of, I need to know, you can't stop yourself because it's a compulsion that just seemed to take me over and there was no turning back. But listen, I got to the truth that I would have never have gotten and I could have wasted another year there. So all well and good. But if you could, would you? People's phones now are almost like diaries, aren't they? They've got so much on them as opposed to WhatsApps and text messages. Now it's appointments, it's everything. It's a whole person's life. I think now if I could, I wouldn't. I think if I had any suspicions about anything now, I would just ask them straight up. And if I thought they were lying, I would just say, listen, I think you're lying. So unless you can prove to me otherwise. But the problem is with that, when you're the other side receiving that, like you think, if you haven't done anything wrong, if you've done something wrong, you kind of know you're going to get caught anyway. So you might as well just fess up straight away. But if you haven't done anything wrong, I think sometimes I'm more indignant to think, no, I'm not showing you. I know I've done nothing wrong. You've got to trust me, which probably to the other person says more like, yeah, you've definitely done something wrong because you're asking me to trust you and I don't. But once you get to that point, I think it's very difficult to recover it. I really do. So for me, I don't think I'm interested in looking. I have trouble looking at my own phone a lot of the times in terms of keeping up with things. So I don't think I would, but I think it's a very delicate area of how people behave. I think if you go back to when phones were first around, I think there were very sure ways of telling when someone was cheating on you because instead of just leaving their phone around all the time, they would suddenly always have it in their pocket because all it was for then was basically calls. You didn't really take a load of videos because the quality was so bad. Not many pictures. There weren't so much the Instagrams and the sharing social platforms then. So it was literally like an extension of a phone, like a landline, text message and phone. So you left it around like you did your phone, you know, like the old fashioned phones, landline phones. You left your mobile around like that because you just thought, I'll hear it. If it rings, I'll pick it up. So there wasn't that always carrying it with you. So as soon as someone started to turn it over or it was on silent or they had it with them all the time or they were going to the toilet with their phone, you kind of got a thing, hold on, something's up here. But now that's not the case because now people have their phones on them like a watch. You know, they'll always carry it with them. They'll take it with them to their bathroom because they might want to read while they're in there or look at something while they're in there and make use of that time. And so it'll always be with them. So that's not uncommon behavior anymore. It's like, right, car keys, phone, gone. It's an extension of your wallet now. There's so much more with these phones. So it's very difficult to tell with people's behavior now on phones whether they are up to something or not, where it used to be very, very easy. So if you had the choice, would you do it? You could find out stuff that you just maybe don't want to know. It could be more than just that. They could be up to something good. They could be planning something for you that you now know about. You know, do you want that? Do you want to know they've still got pictures of past girlfriends because they're memories for themselves? I just think it's people store their whole lives on phones, their history on phones, and not for any other reason. You know, it's like keeping photos. They just want to remember times that they had before. They could be good times, they could be bad times, whatever they are. But you don't want to come across those because you're going to see it in a completely different way. And just like they're doing that stuff with you now on their phone, you know, you'd probably think, well, I hope you keep this forever and remember this moment because we've shared something special here. whatever it may be, a photo of on top of the Eiffel Tower, I don't know. So I don't think much good can come from it. I think a lot of stuff can come from it of looking through it. But here's another question. Do you think the answers vary if you would look at your partner's phone from men to women? Do you think women are more inquisitive and less trusting of guys that they're going to go, I'm going to look for his phone? And do you think men are more like, I don't really care. I'm not looking for it. What do you think? Do you think that answer is going to be different for men and women? Or do you think it's going to be the same answer? I think it's a people thing. I think if you're a jealous sort of person and you're not very trustworthy, or maybe think, like me, if they're going to leave me, they're going to leave me. You know, me knowing about it is not going to prevent any of that. So, you know, the cards will fall where they fall, and then we'll do with the fallout from there. Let me know your thoughts on that. Okay, our next question. Is there a tipping point of bad habits in a relationship? So all these are bad habits, icks, red flag, whatever you want to call them. I've always noticed with people I've dated that I think if I'm not sure about someone, and that could be an attraction thing, you know, I've been attracted to them. We go out on a couple of dates, and if I'm not sure about them, I'll notice things that I don't like a lot earlier. And I think we all do this. Maybe we're looking for sort of affirmation, confirmation of our feelings for them, and kind of think, oh God, you know, they're doing that and I don't like that. But then we can meet someone that we're head over heels about, and they can do exactly the same thing. And then all of a sudden it's cute. What's that about? You know, one person, you know, leaving the toilet seat up and you go, that bloody guy just drives me nuts. And then the next guy, you're like, oh, bless him, he always leaves it up. Is that to do with deep down feelings of a person, and what's coming out is those feelings, and we're just using that habit as a vehicle to get those feelings out? Or is people that we like, we're more tolerant of stuff that they can do? And is there a tipping point? So do we get to a stage of like 3 strikes and I'm gone? Like, well, they've left the toilet seat up. Okay, they've left the, you know, wet towel on the bed, and now they've not put their cup away, wherever it may be. And you say, oh, that's it, I'm done. You know, is there a point of where our personal habits, or is it just about our feeling? Can you be with the right person and they can literally annoy the bejeebies out of you and you're willing to put up with it? Whereas someone else that deep down you're not sure about, for whatever reason that may be, to do with the chemistry, that it just sends you over the edge where you just think, I can't do this. I can't put up with that. Let me know what you think about that, because I think for me, it's all about how you feel about the person and what you're willing to tolerate, especially when you're starting new relationships. I think getting to know people at the very beginning, it's probably after a few years it might start to grind you down, but maybe you'll be a bit more vocal about it, or maybe it'll just become a running joke. I remember in a past relationship, I was amazed about how much toilet roll someone could use, and it was beyond me. You know, with me and Zach in the house, I could get a toilet roll and it would last like a week or so. And we were going through one a day, and I just said, where's it going? What are you doing with it? It was like the sort of the Dulux advert with a dog running around, and I couldn't work it out. And it just really annoyed me. But I don't think in other people it would bother me that much. But I think that was more of a reflection of, deep down, my feelings for that person probably wasn't as strong as I initially thought they was. And this works both ways. I genuinely annoy people most of the time. So I'm used to it coming back to me and people going, oh, I've had enough. And a lot of the time I am a little bit like, yeah, I can see that. I struggle living with myself sometimes. But it's really interesting how with the right person, you can not see those faults. And with other people, all you see is those faults. You know, it's constant. You're constantly seeing that this annoys me, that annoys me. And is that our own way of subconsciously saying to yourself, you're not in the right place here. This is not the right relationship for you. Maybe you're in a relationship where you've got someone that just annoys you with everything they do, but then you just love them. You know, how mad's that? That's how love can work, where, you know, everything about them just drives you completely insane, but you couldn't be without them. because they're your annoying person. I don't know if I could have everything, but I'm sure when you meet the right person and when everything is going in the right direction, you're more willing to put up with stuff. And it's not even put up, you embrace it more as part of the person. And not always as, oh, that's really cute, but as always, you think they do so much for me. This doesn't bother me at all. And I think that's what it's about. It's about what the other person is doing for you in return and understanding what effect you must have on other people. Like I just said, I think I'm very self-aware of how annoying I can be because even when I'm on my own, I annoy myself massively with the stuff that I do. And I'm quite self-critical like that. So I do know how annoying I can be. And I'm very tolerant in new relationships of other people because I think, oh, well, I can put up with that because, I'm doing this. But when I'm aware of all the good stuff that I can do for people, which I do when I'm with the right person, I'm also aware of my own value. And I think that came with a bit of age, actually. And I say this a lot on the podcast. Understanding your own self-worth, what you can bring to someone, and what you do is, I think, a massive thing. And I think it's that trade-off of knowing what they do for you, what you do for them, and then there's a balance in the middle where you go, that's not going to bother me because I know I do this, and then they do something great for you, and that brings out the good in you. I think that's the one thing that I've always noticed, that when I'm with the right person, I like myself a lot more than I do when I'm not, because I do nice things and I want to do stuff for them. And I enjoy seeing them being happy, as opposed to when you're not with the right person, you tend to, I don't know, you look at yourself more. You're more worried about how you're feeling because it's just not right. And you don't want to give anything of yourself more than you have to because it's just not the right person for you. Okay, and that brings us nicely on to the next question of how much can you bend in a new relationship? Because I think we all have an idea in our head of the kind of person that we want. And I know when I talk to Zach now, he's 24. He's got a very distinctive idea of what he wants in the future for his wife. And he's very clear about that's the future. He doesn't want to meet the right person now. And you can never tell when you're going to meet the right person. But he doesn't want to do that until he's done a lot of things that he wants to do. He's quite set in that way. But he has a very clear picture of the person that he wants. And also everyone does. So when you meet someone, they might have a very clear picture. And again, I met someone a few years ago that I was with for about 6 months. And I was just aware after 6 months that they were molding me into something I wasn't. So to give you an example, I've got my own way of dressing. I wear the stuff that I like. I don't really care what other people think. I wear stuff at my football, let's say, and I know openly there'll be guys there laughing at what they think I'm wearing. I really don't care. I think I look okay in it. I seem to do okay when I go out. People seem to like stuff, and I often look at the guys that are laughing and think, I'm not dressing like you. You look like your wife's dressed you every morning. I don't want to dress like that. It may be good for you. It's not good for me. And also, why do you want to look like everyone else is dressed? I know what I like wearing. And sometimes it's going to make people go, what the bloody hell are you wearing? I quite like that. I like that shock factor of doing something that maybe gets you noticed. And maybe that's why I got into the podcast and love doing the TV work, because it is about performing and being out there. Maybe that's a part of my personality that I was never that familiar with. But I was very aware that she stopped me wearing a lot of the stuff that she called my dress up clothes. I was becoming like I'd walked out of a Next catalogue and I started to feel like I was looking like everyone else. Blue polo shirt, blue shorts that matched. I just looked like another deer in the field. There's nothing individual about me anymore, or that's standing out, whether that's for good or bad reasons, whatever it may be. But that's what she wanted. I'd always remembered that when we were taking photos, there had to be a certain way and doing a certain thing. Our photos used to look like when you buy a photo frame, they come with a picture in it of a couple that gives you an idea of what it looked like. It's always that perfect setting, perfect cuddle, perfect kiss. It was exhausting. It took about 20 minutes to get the right picture in the end. And by the end of it, there was nothing authentic about it at all. By the time it had been filtered, we barely looked like ourselves anyway. So I really got to the stage where I just thinking, I've lost myself in this. I've become what she wanted, and I'm no longer what she went for in the first place. And maybe she saw a potential in me to be what she wanted. Maybe we all do that. And I think I've been guilty of that in the past as well, to be honest, where I've dated people thinking, oh, they look this way, they look that way, but if only they did this, and only they did that. So you try and encourage them to do a bit more. And then as you start sort of trying to push them in a direction, you they resist against it. And that doesn't help things in the end, because they'll then be more hostile towards you, because it's like, listen, this is who I'm at. If you don't like it, I'm not the right person for you. And I think that comes with maturity as well on both parts. As you get older, especially like late 30s, I think you're very comfortable in your own skin and you know who you are, and you're not worried so much about what your mates think, what people think. You're less likely to go to other people for advice about something when you know what you want to do anyway. You might run it past people to hear their views, but a lot of the time you kind of know yourself, especially if you've been single a long time. You know yourself quite well. So you'll make decisions based upon what you know. You might hear other people out, but the decision will be yours, because you're the one that's got to live with it, not them. So you need to be always comfortable with those decisions. So you make a lot of them for yourself. So how much can you bend in a relationship? I think depends upon what are you willing to let go. It could be a bad habit that you want to change. And that's the other part of this. Sometimes we do say, and I've had this loads of times before, when people go, I want to get fitter. Well, will you help me? Yeah, cool, I'll help you. But a month later, when you're going, listen, we need to get out, we need to run, we need to, and then, oh, I don't want to. You're thinking, look, you asked me for help. You know, if you want me to help you, do something about it. But if you don't want this to change, stay as you are, because it's never changing. As we always say, if it was easy, everyone would do what you want. But sometimes it's hard work to achieve something that you want to achieve, but you've got to be willing to put it in, not sort of moan about you can't get there when you're actually not doing anything to do it. That's another thing that drives me nuts as well. The people that just moan about stuff and don't really try and do anything about it when they can. So I think it depends how much you're willing to let go and what you want to let go of. There's certain character traits in me that drive me nuts, but I can't let go of them because they're inbred. And as much as I want people to help me let go of them, I do push back against it. I don't know why, because that annoys me, but I do. I'm a big hoarder. Dreadful. I hoard so much stuff. So how much would you let go of your personality? And are there traits in your personality you'd like to let go? Are there traits in your personality that you know you can't let go, as much as you tried and you think, I've tried to let this go and I just can't? It's like an addiction. And that could just be, something like smoking, drinking, whatever it may be. But how much are we willing to bend? And how much do you want to bend people? And I think that's another big takeaway for me as I've got older, is I don't want to change people. If I'm changing them, it's not for them. It's for me, and that's not fair. What does impress me is people who say they're going to do something and do it. They want to do this, and then they go ahead and do it. I find that really impressive. That does make me always think, I'll like that person a bit more for having that.
The new LinkedIn Hiring Pro can't undo your last hire. The human postponer. They were the master of one phrase. I'll circle back on that. But 3 months later, you were the one doing all their work and wondering how big that circle is. But LinkedIn Hiring Pro can take the hiring load off your plate by automating the hiring busy work from the initial job post to scheduling interviews. Hire right the first time with LinkedIn Hiring Pro. Post a free job today at linkedin.com/quality.
This episode is brought to you by Perfect Bistro Cat Food. Hey guys, today I'm interviewing my cat about his perfect bistro food. Percy, you seem to be a big Perfect Bistro fan. Care to comment? Totally. What do you like about it? You love the high quality ingredients? And the delicious flavors, of course. Yeah, that makes a ton of sense. Listen to Percy, guys. Visit perfectbistro.com to try it for your cat.
So let me know that. How much you're willing to bend? How much have you tried to change people in the past and realised it was you trying to change them and that was just a mistake? Okay, our last question. And this goes back to something that we had about attraction. And I'm big on instant attraction. And I've said before, it takes time to get to know someone. And in the dating world, you don't have that time anymore. You can get time if it's in circle of friends or people you work with, and then you get to know them. So I put this question out about, how much is instant attraction and how much is getting to know people and then being attracted to them. And I related this to a story that I had. I met a girl and got to know her. I didn't fancy her in the beginning and then really fancied her by the end, and then went from there. And a lot of you, especially the women, came back to me and said, it's all about getting to know the person, blah, blah, blah. And every time I said, okay, how did that end out? They never seem to be with them now. And yes, it was the same way with instant attraction. The difference is that I found from when they were coming back to me is it always went the same way. So it was, we met, we were friends, really good friends. It was great. We had everything. And then we both realized that we wanted to be with each other. So we were with each other. And the relationship was great because it was built on friendship and everything else. And then it didn't work out. And then I was like, okay, so are you still good friends? And no, we're not, unfortunately. So what you've ended up doing is not only losing a relationship, you've lost a friend. Listen, I'd always gamble that anyway, because I think if you find the right relationship, it's worth its weight in gold. But when you are attracted to someone that you don't know, and then you start the reverse way, so you start by fancying them, and then you get to know them, and then if you like them more, it goes on. And yes, it can end. But when it ends, you haven't lost the friend from the relationship. You didn't know them beforehand. There was no history beforehand. So that's the question that I wanted to tell me. Is there any benefit from being friends and then being attracted to a relationship, or being attracted, becoming friends in the relationship, to how it ends up? Is it worse losing that friendship when you were friends to begin with, or is it worse losing that friendship from the relationship? Being friends with someone outside a relationship and being friends within a relationship, is there any difference? Because when you're friends with someone in a relationship, that friendship is built on love and attraction, because you don't want to sleep with all of your friends. But if your partner is your friend as well, you're still having a sexual chemistry as well, where people that are the opposite sex, same sex, whatever it may be, that are just friends, you don't have that attraction. So it's just based purely on friendship. So are the friendship dynamics different in a relationship to what they're different between if you've been friends before and then go into a relationship? And if it ends, when it ends, is it just the same anyway? Does it really matter which way around you do it? And is it the end result, and it was always going to be that way no matter what? And are you willing to gamble that? If someone said to you, okay, right, you're going to have a great relationship for the next 3 years with this friend of yours that you like, but at the end of that 3 years, this is going to end, and then you're no longer going to be friends, would you take that? Would you take that chance on the relationship because you'd have a great 3 years, or would you go, do you know what? I don't want the great 3 years. I just want them as a friend. Let me know your answers. Guys, as always, thank you very much for your time and listening to me jabber on. Love your feedback on everything we do. Send me questions, because these questions that we do every week, they're based around about what you feedback. So I'd love some questions from you to go through on the podcast. Been great chatting. Make sure you subscribe, make sure you follow. Helps build the channel, and it's constantly growing, which is brilliant. Really appreciate all the feedback and the lovely messages. So thank you very much for that. Make sure you follow on Instagram and on TikTok. We're on YouTube Shorts and everything else, and all the platforms where you get your podcast. Take care. Have a good week. See you soon. Bye.
The right window treatments change everything. Your sleep, your privacy, the way every room looks and feels. At Blinds.com, we've spent 30 years making it surprisingly simple to get exactly what your home needs. We've covered over 25 million windows and have 50,000 five-star reviews to prove we deliver. Whether you DIY it or want a pro to handle everything from measure to install, we have you covered. Real design professionals, free samples, zero pressure. Right now, get up to 50% off with minimum purchase, plus get a free professional measure at Blinds.com. Rules and restrictions apply.
At ZocDoc, we know being a healthy adult is like living in a video game. Every day has side quests, taxes, laundry, birthdays, and just when you're leveling up, you have to book a doctor. The insurance portal crashes, they put you on hold, your doctor doesn't take your plan, game over. We see you, so we made booking a doctor easy. Download ZocDoc, search by specialty, insurance, and availability. Book instantly, no cheat codes required. Find a doctor you love with ZocDoc.
Right.